China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
Hello, 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博人。This morning, China time was the first presidential debate of the 2024 U.S. presidential election between President Trump and President Biden. Now, how many times was China mentioned? And what is my basic analysis? Well, today I'll share it with you. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Borham in Shanghai. Let's get reporting. Apologies, today I was meant to have a live guest on the show, Tom Polkin II from China Trends, but we encountered some connection difficulties. So I'm just going to share my thoughts on the first presidential debate with you by myself. Today was a first in many ways. The presidential debate took part in Georgia, which is actually a battleground area. President Trump and President Biden were the two oldest presidents or candidates to debate ever. It's both of their first time debating since the 2020 campaign. It's also the earliest debate ever. The election is not happening until November. Also, there were some interesting rules based on the last debates, which got a bit rowdy. No live audience, which many felt may be to the detriment of Donald Trump, who usually gets quite a lot of energy racking up the crowds. There were two breaks. Neither of the candidates are allowed to chat with anyone else during the breaks from the campaign team. And it was a 90-minute debate hosted by Dana Bush and Jake Tapper. There were also not allowed to be any pre-written notes or props, and contact with campaign staff during the debate was not allowed. I'm not looking at this debate based on, from an American's perspective. I'm not American. I'm also not looking at domestic issues. All I'm interested on Reports on China is where it came to China being brought up during the debate, and also some international issues like the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, China was not part of any of the debate questions today, which was interesting considering how big of a part China has played in previous campaigns, previous debates. In the Republican race, China was a huge part where every candidate was looking to disparage China in any way they could. China was brought up by the candidates two times during the entire 1.5-hour debate. Actually, first, let's take a look.
You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China.
You have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost.
Thank you, President Biden.
We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So as you can see there, just 8 minutes into the debate, President Trump brought up China. He said that China had been ripping off the US for many years before he got into office, like many other countries. And he quickly added, like many other countries, in all fairness to China. So it sounded like he was kind of tamping that accusation down a little bit. And then later on, China was brought up again in the second half, where President Biden accused Trump of not having made any progress with China and saying that the trade deficit between China and the US is now the lowest since 2010. Now, Trump retorted, as you just saw. He said that now there is the largest trade deficit with China under Biden, and he accused Biden of being paid by China and said that because of that, he's afraid to take any action. He also mentioned that Trump mentioned that they saved the steel industry. I think he's suggesting from China in that instance. He also added, China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing. They're killing us. You're allowing them to destroy our country. Now, I don't obviously agree at all with that. I think both Trump and Biden have been extremely tough on China, but in very negative and, I would say, unthoughtful ways. And I think in many ways, Biden has been a lot worse for the relationship with China than Trump was. Of course, just recently, Biden's administration brought in those hideously huge tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, for one. 100% tariff, which is mind-boggling for anyone who's actually interested in saving the environment, which I don't think the Biden administration is. If you look at the US attitude towards China's green industries, including the fact that China produces more batteries and more solar technology than any other country, and has single-handedly brought the price down for those technologies in the last 10 years, so much that now small countries, developing nations, can take part in green energy, is only to be commended. But the US, Washington, and Biden's administration seem to be doing all they can to stymie that, which is very sad. During the debate, Trump mentioned campaign slogans from the 2016 and 2020 campaigns, including from 2016, he mentioned making America great again. That was only actually mentioned once during the debate by Trump today, which was interesting. And also the term draining the swamp was only used once as well. So it looks like Trump was light on that kind of rhetoric this time, but he was very much pushing the idea that Biden is not a respected president internationally, and that Biden's weak presidency has led to the situation between the Ukraine and Russia, which he asserts would never have happened if he were still president. So that seems to be the overarching message here, I feel, from Trump in the debate today, is that he would be respected, he would be strong, and Biden is the opposite. Now, China's President Xi Jinping was also brought up once today by President Trump, who mentioned that Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, and President Xi don't respect or fear Joe Biden, and that they have nothing going with him. Which seems to imply that Trump would have better relations and more respect from the three if he were president, which he thinks would have led, in terms of Russia and Ukraine at least, to Ukraine never have been attacked if he were president, which is a huge claim, I think. So yeah, in terms of China-US relations in this debate today, I think it was very China-light, as I mentioned before. Not a single question was asked by the moderators about China. Fentanyl was brought up, the fentanyl crisis, which is a huge problem, which previously US politicians have blamed on China. And that was not a link that was made today, which I found very interesting. In fact, President Biden mentioned that he's been working closely with countries in Asia to stem the flow of precursors to people who will use that for nefarious purposes. He didn't mention China specifically, which I found interesting. So not a lot to talk about today in terms of China-US relations in this debate. But I think that's also quite noteworthy. Doesn't mean that China is not going to be as big of a subject in this year's presidential debate. We have to wait and see. I want to read a comment now from a Twitter follower who is a US American. He said, "Looking forward to good US-China relations in the future. I'm hopeful for the future, even though it looks grim currently." And I couldn't agree more. I think that if they could tone down the anti-China rhetoric in government, it may lead to that anti-China rhetoric being toned down a little bit in the media, which would only be a good thing. As I've said many times before on this show, US Americans happen to be among the most propagandized in the entire world. So I think toning down a lot of that negativity when it comes to China and looking more at the reality, and that's something I firmly believe in, and that China is doing much more good than many other countries in the world for the entire planet. If more Americans could see that, that would be excellent. I'm crossing my fingers. What did you think? Did you watch the debate? Love to know what you have to say, so do let me know down below. But also don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel. And I'll see you all next time.